welcome to our continued study in the Gospel of Luke. Today we're looking at probably one of the most familiar passages in the whole Gospel, chapter 15. You may not recognize it by its label of chapter 15, but you'll recognize the stories because they're very familiar. It's the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son, or what we call the prodigal son, with the follow-up of an elder brother. It's very important to try to locate yourself in that story. I found out real early reading the text is only valuable to me if it speaks to me, if it shapes my life in some kind of way. So I began to try to say, where do I fit in this story? What is this passage really saying to me? When the story is so familiar, at times that's hard to do. I was captured by the very beginning 2 verses of the chapter when it states clearly that Jesus is talking to both Pharisees and tax collectors, to scribes and to sinners. And interestingly, the Pharisees were complaining because Jesus was welcoming the sinners and eating with them. And so I recognize there's 2 obvious groups there, the sinners and the tax collectors, the Pharisees and the scribes. As I thought about that in my personal study, I determined I didn't want to be in either group. I don't want to be in the lost pig pen of a prodigal son. Neither do I want to be a self-righteous Pharisee looking down his nose at the lost of our world. And so I began to recognize there's a different picture in the middle of that chapter. There is a shepherd. There is a woman who swept looking for a lost coin. And there is a father who went looking after a son. And so I wanted to be not a Pharisee, not one who's lost in the darkness of sin, but I wanted to be involved in the work of the kingdom, reaching those who are lost. In order to do that, I recognized 3 simple ideas or principles. Number 1, I must never forget where I came from. My background is not as Christian and glorious as it is today. It's cluttered full of disobedience and ugly behavior. And I must never lose touch of that and remember where Jesus has brought me from, that I might be compassionate toward others. Paul writes in Luke chapter 3, verses 12 to 17, be clothed with compassion and kindness and humility and meekness and patience. And if you got to complain against somebody, forgive them. Secondarily, I must never ever forget that people are valuable. What a huge lesson. It's so easy to look over the ordinary people of our lives, and we must remember that in the eyes of Jesus, every person was valuable. Luke, the whole Gospel of Luke, does a great job with that, as Luke is always concerned about the little people, about the servants, about the sinners in the process. And he paints for us in this chapter the glorious value of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son. And last of all, sometimes all we can do is wait. The other Greek translation for the word welcome is to wait. And sometimes we just have to patiently, with a welcoming attitude, do nothing more than wait. May God help you and I this day to be not like the Pharisee, not like the sinner, but like the shepherd and the woman and the father, and be involved in the work of the kingdom. Thank you today for a brief look at Luke chapter 15 and for joining us again for Just the Meat and Potatoes.